Okay, how you doing, Bennett?
Now, yes, Bennett can't see who's here, so let me just tell you, and I'll introduce Bennett. Bennett, for Steve's benefit, is Kim's boss. He's I guess he's the owner of Partners in Association Management. We've got Valerie in a window, Steve Ritchie's in a window, Basil in a window, Kim in a window, and Jack in a window, and Bennett with no video.
Correct. Thank you.
You're now an avatar of a phone.
Right. All right.
So we understand, Bennett. I hadn't realized that you'd had trauma. So I just want to sympathize with you. It sounds really terrible what's happened to you. So we're really sorry to hear about that.
No, appreciate it. Yeah, had 3 hours of surgery on my left elbow last Thursday, stemming from a bicycle accident, and so now I've got what they call an external fixator, which basically is there to keep it from falling out of or further dislocation. So as the ligaments heal, so they installed 3 new metal parts. Permanent metal parts, and then the fixator is basically to keep it from, like I said, while it's healing, is to not fall out of socket while it's healing.
How long will that healing process take, Bennett?
Well, I know I'll see you in a couple of weeks, so I'll probably have this fixator. I definitely will have this fixator on when I see you.
Okay.
But I mean, physical therapy, that could be a while. But as far as this fixator, probably 6 to 8 weeks on the outside of the arm.
Okay.
So it's basically you have two pins in the shoulder, 2 pins in the forearm, and then holds the fixator in place.
So our topic is how to transfer the data from the access systems which Partners has maintained into the new NaCCRA membership administration system. And I understand, Bennett, that you want to say something about that.
Well, I mean, I want to have dialogue about it. So I want to make sure we're doing what's being expected, but also want to have dialogue about, when we're going to do it, and just, have some broader dialogue, which, I've had with you and Basil before, is within the context of the platform itself. I guess to say, to some extent, the easy part is importing the data. The data we have, and importing that data into the platform. But I want to have clarity. I think I've read it. I just want to make sure I'm, reading it clearly. Is once the platform is live, that the intention is for partners to, regardless of whether members continue to send us, paper checks, which they traditionally have done, is that we're going to use the platform, enter the data, and populate the platform, as opposed to using our current access database. And we'll do that for every transaction, regardless of how that transaction comes in, knowing, as we talked before, that it'll be a while before we get members to utilize the online login and renewal process that the platform accommodates. That'll take a while for adoption, if you will. But in the meantime, the intent from the volunteer leadership is to use that platform and capture the data, so that the data is housed in that platform as the primary platform. Now, am I correct in all those assessments?
I think that's a very good understanding, because I think that we're dealing with a demographic who tend to do things the way they've always done them. So I think initially people are just going to do what they've always done. And that means that instead of the data being in the access system, it will now be in the SQL, MySQL system.
Right.
I forgot the name of Larry Ellison's company a minute. I think I'm getting right for memory care. But anyway, yes. So I think what you just summarized is correct. The first question, though, as to when, I think that there's no reason now to delay, because we stress tested the system. We had people of age stress testing it. They raised the questions that older people raised, and that seemed to bear out. That's ready to go live. Now, that's not to say that it's perfect. You know, the minute you go live with something, you find problems. So then, I think Steve is prepared to work with us to fix those problems just as quickly as they arise. Now, Steve has raised a question about the form, etc., of the data transfer. So then I think you can agree on a date, and let's just do it as of that date.
Well, can I back up just a moment before we go into that discussion?
Sure.
So, you know, if we all agree that the member adoption of a new platform is going to take a while, so really the only people that are going to use it are the people on the phone and other staff and partners who do the data entry, you know, for a period of time. So in the frame of reference as it relates to the ROI for multiple parties, is it intended by the board leadership that because you will have admin login rights and can pull data from the online platform, that, you know, membership trends, membership reports, membership tracking, if you will, for board dissemination, that volunteer leadership are going to pull those, or you're still going to come to partners to pull the data? We're just pulling it from a different platform. It's just,
Well,
that's just a question.
That will be evolving the same way as the usage evolves.
Okay, understood.
What did you mean by ROI?
Well, I mean, whenever you launch a new platform, you're looking for some return on investment, not necessarily financial, but either efficiencies or, you know, accessibility to the data, meaning broader accessibility to the data. So I was defining ROI pretty broadly. You know, so if I look at it now, and I don't want to rehash things, we just haven't had the chance to be on the phone with Steve too, you know, from the programming standpoint, from a partner standpoint, is, you know, the pro of the current system is it's the system we use for all of our other clients. You know, our staff's adept at using access and pulling data and, you know, reports, whatever we might need. The con, you know, is NaCCRA leadership can't log into NaCCRA's database. That's a con. So when I talk about ROI, I'm just trying to say, okay, what's the short-term ROI? You know, once we launch the platform, we know what the long term is. That's fairly easy to define. I'm just trying to, you know, as you communicate to the volunteers around the country, you know, if they're affiliated with state associations or, you know, whatever it may be, you know, that it's part of the messaging, not only for us operationally, but, you know, what's the benefit? You know, I'm not saying there aren't any, there are. I think identifying
let me ask you directly, because you mentioned that this would be a learning curve you feel for your staff to use a new platform. Are you comfortable continuing providing clerical support to NaCCRA?
I mean, at this stage, I mean, I think the answer is yes. We don't know until we start it, but I mean, it's not the platform is certainly not complex. So it's, but it is, it is out of our system. So it's, we will be logging into a different platform. Not that we can't do it, and not that we won't understand the mechanics behind it. Those are things that are fairly simple. But it is a different platform. So it is an interruption of our existing system. But it doesn't mean it can't be done.
So you are comfortable though having this platform, and you might want to adopt it for your other clients.
Well, I mean, no disrespect. I mean, I'm not even considering that at this stage for many reasons. But I mean,
I hear what you're saying.
So.
The question is, do you want to continue to provide the clerical support to NaCCRA? And do you think you can do that within the parameters of the scope of services agreement that we now have?
Yeah, I honestly, I think we have to start it and then communicate as we go if there's any concerns. But until we start doing it, it's all speculation.
Okay, so. Great. Now, how would you view the mechanics of that start?
I mean, as we've integrated new clients into partners, it's not the first time something like this has occurred, so it's not completely foreign, meaning there are off-the-shelf association management platforms, that we've had to integrate when we've transitioned a new client in and they were using something else. And so for a period of time, we've used those other platforms to, process data, enter data, make transactions, track, so it's not, my point is it can be done. I think, none of us know until we start using it on a daily basis. You can test things, but there's always going to be some situation that crops up that none of us thought about, and it won't crop up until we actually start doing it. That's all.
Okay.
I'm not fearful. I'm not fearful of any of it. I'm just being upfront with you that there'll be things we'll report back to you as we go and say, what about this? What about that? That's all I'm trying to stress.
Okay. Have you personally, Bennett, have you personally worked with this system and the administrative capabilities built into it?
No, I have not. I know I was out completely all last week, so I have not personally touched it. No.
No, I understand that. Of course, I think Amy was on the call with Steve, and she probably tested it pretty well. It's been, we made it available for testing before we released it to the board for the board to test. And to the
Correct.
People. So
yeah,
so
Amy tested it. Amy,
I think you'll find that it may be more user-friendly than what you fear.
I mean, don't mishear me. I don't have fear. All I'm saying is once we start using it on a daily basis, we'll find things that none of us thought about. Yeah. That we'll have to come back and say, can we tweak this? Can we not tweak that? That's all I'm saying.
Yes, and I think Steve is standing by ready to help with those tweaks when and as they're needed. And I've been very impressed with some of what he's done. For example, he just released 2 new features that might be of interest to you. One is a contact form that avoids using a third-party area so that you can have high level of security with the contact form. Having the contact form run directly on the hosting site. Security, I think, is critical to this whole operation, and we've given that the highest priority. Another thing that he's just introduced is a PDF exchange that allows you to target PDFs to specific members through the system so that only those members or designated group of members would have access to a particular PDF, which is a tremendous advance. So I think you're going to find that there are some really nice features here, Bennett, that you'll be able to use in the role that is most beneficial to us. As Ann Mackay likes to put it, what we value about Bennett is his advisory, his lobbying, his interaction, his understanding of our demographic, all of those things more than the clerical support, which you also provide, which is very useful. So we're very grateful to have you on the team, Bennett, and this is an important transition.
Yeah. Now, the one thing, and I'm only asking it because it's, we haven't had the chance as a group to communicate about it, and then I'll stop talking. I know you have talked to Steve about it as it relates to the security of the data, and building in, appropriate firewalls for hacking and stuff like that. So I guess knowing some of the members that we have in our organization who look for every little thing, weakness in the organization, what do you perceive that will kind of be publicly disseminated as it relates to data security using an online platform of this nature?
Steve has put together a privacy. He has two. You have two documents, Steve. One of which is privacy. What's the other one? Help me out, Steve.
Sorry?
Privacy in terms of service, right? And you meet the much higher standards of the European Union because by necessity. So that's what I found.
Message for you, huh?
No. So we meet the higher standards of the European Union, which are much higher than the standards in the United States. So I don't imagine that a guardhouse lawyer is going to, which is what you're referring to, is going to be able to jump on us. He even includes the cookies warning, which is required in the European Union, but not in the United States. So I think we meet a much higher standard than the American standard. Right.
Okay. And then my secondary question, and it'll be my last one, unless somebody asks me a question, is because Kim, you may have covered a little bit of this briefly with people, but when the platform may go down for different reasons, whether it's routine maintenance or whatever it may be, I just think it's important for the board to be cognizant that there will be times where, there could be an interruption in data processing when you use online platforms, but you could have that with a traditional platform too when you're doing software upgrades. So I just think, as long as you're aware of that, that if there's a situation, if you will, where there could be a delay of data processing that's related to the platform, which that could happen with any platform. So I'm not saying anything out of school. It's just, I think it's important for the volunteer leadership to know there will be times where there'll be an interruption in processing, but they probably will be very rare, but they will occur.
Well, let me let Steve, I'm going to introduce him here to introduce the topic, just to give him a chance to collect his thoughts. We're going to be hosting this on a site that Steve's recommended to us, precisely to give us security and reliability features. So I'm going to let him speak to that. So this will, we've been hosting most of our sites on Fat Cow, which has, it's cheap, but it's not the greatest. Martha Marks was using Bluehost, which did involve significant interruptions because of the way they supported WordPress. They didn't have a seamless ability to upgrade the website. But Steve, why don't you talk to us a little bit about the reliability and the hosting platform?
Well, the hosting will be on a server that I manage, which is in the US. So it's so speed-wise shouldn't be a problem because most of the users will be in the US as well. It has got a record of about 99% uptime, so the amount of time that it should be down would be very minimal. But I have, as I say, because I manage the server and I have additional servers there to manage to use as well, a backup system can be put in place within a few hours. So if there should be a disaster on the server, we can get it back up and running on another server very, very quickly. So there shouldn't be any major downtimes. I have my own development servers as well as you know, which is what we're using for testing, which are hosted in the UK and the US. And again, they have a 99% uptime. So any development before it goes live or changes will be done there, so it doesn't interrupt the live system. And then getting it into the live system only takes a matter of minutes once it's been tested. So again, that shouldn't pose any major downtimes.
Very good.
So do we have any other topics?
Well, I wanted to talk just a little bit about future applications. We just this morning got from your shop, Bennett, the membership rolls as of the end of July, and if I did my addition right on the columns, we're less than 2,000 total members. So somehow we've got to really outreach to grow membership. And right now, about the only outreach that I can think of is in those 40 states. So 40 states in the US anyhow, that don't have anything, not even sometimes members. And I wondered if these folks could be aggregated in, now we have community associations and state associations. Could they be aggregated into an at-large unit in your system? In other words, right now we have associations that are communities. Our members are identified by community. They can be identified by state. But I'm looking at the all others because obviously that's our biggest growth pattern. The places where we don't really touch anybody. Somehow we're going to have to really put a major push on that. I wondered whether the membership data that we now have could be then accessed. There's only 313 people out there, unless I've done some bad math, and that's possible with me. So, but still as a group, they're not even as big as a Florida or some of the other units, but somehow this has got to be moved off dead center. And I'm looking at the accessibility of the individuals. How many of them have email addresses, et cetera, good mailing addresses. So I'm really looking at the ability to grow the revenue base out of this system, and it seems like it ought to provide some real benefit for that, because if we go into a unit, more and more of the people I live with are very computer literate. So if somebody can join online and make a membership and reach into some of the data on NaCCRA.com, for example, I think that the platforms may permit us to do what we all is in our best interest to do, and that is grow revenue. We need that badly. And so I'll leave that to people like Steve and Kim and people who know better than I about firewalls and protection of data, and that is very important. I don't deny any of that, but I'm kind of looking past that point. And what I'm saying is, is this system offer us the ability to launch into new fields? And Bennett, I'm so glad you're on the call, because you're kind of the guy in Havana on this, and you and Kim, because what I'm looking for is a way to reach out to the state of Indiana, where my home state, we only got 8 members there, I think, if I remember the figure right. So I'm looking at it, from the vantage point of keeping track of members. I'd like that. I like the ease of joining. If we can ever get down to being able to process payments, things of that nature, I think that's all tremendous capability. But if I look at the organization's need, I have to say it's revenue and how we see this information being used to acquire a greater membership base. So I hope that's not out of line here, but I kind of looking at it past the individual adaptation. I assume that when we make the transfer, we can protect it and we won't corrupt any of the data. I think we probably can do that from an access to, at least from what I know, that ought to be pretty easily done. But I'm interested in the operational vantage point, and you touched on that, Bennett, when we first started, because you said asked, are we going to extract data? In other words, if I want to go to that big at-large group out there, the 300 people, can we in fact have a email blast that would target just that group? People are not in any state or any community organizations, to try to attract people that would want to be part of the organization. So I don't know whether that's out of line or not, but clearly it's one of the organizational needs that this will have to satisfy.
Can I ask you some questions?
You certainly may.
Okay, if you want to send an e-blast to all people who don't have a state association,
right?
Is there any reason why you can't just select those states that don't have a state association? Or do you feel you need a special marker in the database to identify those people for selection? I believe there's no problem with sending an e-blast out that's...
there is not, in my understanding. I think there is no limitation on that right now.
What Steve's system enables is us to do that very effectively. So I'm a little confused about exactly what is there a database capability that you're looking for, or are you just looking for somebody to take the initiative in creating
probably the latter, Jack. Probably the latter.
Okay, now would
you get that organized into a program of something that we would try to launch.
Okay, is that something that Bennett would put together for you? Is that something you would look to Bennett to put together for you?
I don't think so. I think it's something that we have to do, to be frank with you, at least in program design. I don't think that's something that we would expect Bennett to put together for us, but we clearly have to have some capability to grow membership. And right now it's the volunteer side that does that. At least that's my understanding.
Yeah, well, Bennett grew Flakeland. And so that was the key factor in 2011 in our retaining. We wanted that expertise, and Bennett has tried different things from time to time. I'm trying to remember, 3 or 4 years ago, there was an initiative. The main membership growth came with the state of Washington, but we have had growth, because I was looking at data yesterday from 2011 when we worked on the bylaws. We had 983 members at that time, according to one report, and now we went up to 2175. But with the change with Washington, we're be coming back. So I think we are beginning to get slow traction in growing what we would like, and where Bennett may be able to really help us, is to have breakout growth, some kind of bulk mass enrollment. And that would take some thought, and I don't think that's database driven. I think having the capabilities that we're now building will support that. We now have a platform that is growth oriented, because the people in Washington, for example, were bothered that on a Friday they couldn't do their membership on a Friday on the phone, because 9 a.m. in the state of Washington is noon in Florida. So we'll be moving away from that sort of limitation.
Well, I don't want to sidetrack this. I realize why we're on the phone is to affect this transfer. So I don't want to get us sidetracked into that. But there's a reason we keep this information, and there's an operational side to it. I'm still searching for that silver bullet, I guess.
Well, yeah, I think we've been looking for that for a long time. And I think the silver bullet is called FLICRA. Association. If you can build relationship with the Florida people, if Florida comes our way, then the rest of the nation will follow. Because for Steve's benefit, because Steve doesn't know the United States, there's a concentration of retired people in Florida. They move there for the climate, and just as you've gone to Thailand. So
yeah, I found that when I visited several years back.
Let me just summarize where I think we are. So Bennett asked first the question of when, and I think the answer is as quickly as possible. And I assume that Kim and Steve will jointly work directly together to accomplish that transition. Is that correct, Bennett?
Yeah, I mean, Amy will be in the mix because, Amy's our IT, person. So she oversees our member services manager, and the member services team is the actual team of people who do the data entry. So Kim's not doing NaCCRA data entry, okay. But she's monitoring the workflow, and the outcomes. But once we know that it's a date sensitive, we'll pick a date. We'll start, logging into the platform, entering the data, and then Amy and Kim will come back to whether it's Steve directly or you as a group, whatever you're comfortable with, and say it's going well, no hiccups, or hey, here's a couple things we probably didn't think about. We'll just be open communication, and I do applaud what y'all have done, and see, I think it's a great, I think you've done a great job, so I don't let that be lost. Although I focus on operational, because if operations don't work well, nothing else works. But the long term, this type of platform, if we're looking down the road, which is where we should be looking, is it gives the user, whether it's a member or a prospect member, more of an Amazon.com, customer experience. And that's what people are looking for, and so that's a huge plus.
Okay, can we look to Kim to be the coordinator for partners, or do you want Amy to be the contact person?
I think it'll be Kim. I just think I just would be known that Amy will probably register in on a couple of things. They're more technical, but Kim can be the point of contact for sure.
Okay, and I think since we're talking about transition, I think that Steve should be the point of contact for now on this. And if Steve needs something from me, he gets in touch with me. Yeah. But I think that the mechanics, Steve already wrote to her about technical things like, do we transfer the data in Access or Excel or CSV? Those technical questions, I assume you don't want to be involved in those technical questions. Am I correct, Bennett?
Yeah, I mean, Amy's going to basically give the answer to Kim once we know what the date sensitive is, where we import data and then start entering in new data. Amy's going to give the green light on that, but Kim can communicate that.
Okay. And the second item that you referred to was the inputting of data. And there, does Steve have the payment information that would be needed as we go live to have the PayPal payments go directly into the NaCCRA bank accounts?
Is that a question? I think it's a question.
Yeah.
Kim had her phone muted so she could scratch and things, and she had it unmuted.
I'm unmuted. I have all the information, and when you want me to send it to Steve, I can do that. It's already all set up. The bank account's already been tested. I mean, it's ready.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. That's good news. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Why don't you just work with Steve on that? In fact, I don't know. Well, you probably don't want to just phone him because the time difference is pretty awesome. But aside from that, okay. So the second thing, the third thing that you raised, Bennett, was clarity about the clerical administration interacting with the system. And we start from, and I think we all agreed that we start from where we are, minimal change, and we let the natural evolution follow the capabilities of the platform as people become increasingly familiar with what's there for them to do. Are we agreed on that?
I believe, yeah, I believe, yes. I don't think there's any disagreement, concern that what you just raised.
Okay, and then the fourth thing that you was an observation that adoption of the platform by the membership and by community administrators, because I suspect that there'll be people who may emerge in different communities to help people, will evolve over time, but that the ROI, to use the term that you use, will principally be the ability of people to have local answers to their questions. That's what really got Stephanie Chamberlain in the Washington group upset. They wanted that local, and so we agree that that will take time. There's likely to be resistance. I've never seen any change introduced to anybody over age 65 where they didn't object to it. So we'll let them all object, but over time they'll discover the wonderful benefits. I'm amazed how many of my neighbors who initially said they'd never buy from Amazon now buy every day from Amazon. So we're all set on that. Do we agree on that? Okay, that's, silence, I assume we agree. 5, we all acknowledge that security of the data is paramount. One of the points that you made early in this process, Bennett, was that since partners would no longer have control of the platform, you could no longer take responsibility for the security aspect. So we're transferring the security of the data to the hosting capabilities that Steve is bringing to us. And that's a key factor here. And there are aspects of that I want to explore further with Steve, but I think we're in agreement that the security responsibility transfers from partners to Richo Soft Square. Are we in agreement on
right?
That? 6, we're concerned about reliability and uptime, and we agree that that's a concern. I mean, that's just that chemical factory in Houston thought they had quadruple backup to give them security for those chemicals they were storing there, and even all the backup systems failed and the chemicals blew up. So you do the best you can, but life doesn't come with perfection. So I think you wanted us to acknowledge that. I think we acknowledge that. And the last thing that we agree on is Basil's point that we need to use this new platform and the eBlast capabilities, which Kim has given us through Constant Contact, to target in a way that helps us to grow membership. And clearly that's going to mean communicating to people who aren't members. So we need to develop some ideas there. That's something that I think Basil and I will probably go back and forth brainstorming together on. Are we in agreement with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think that, Basil, do you have anything more?
No, I really think, and I hope, I hope a year from now, we'll look back on this and we'll say, well, it was a right step. You've got something out there that's really user friendly, and people are as comfortable with what we have as people are with using Amazon today. I mean, it's time for us to have something like this. And I hope that Bennett will be looking at it the same way and say, well, how can I migrate it to some of my other organizations? I think that it's time for that too.
Yeah, I think this has been very, very constructive, because one of the things that I learned in working with boards of directors is, as management, you're always optimistic. And all the new things you're doing, they're going to be wonderful. They're going to go in flawlessly. And you meet with the board of directors, and the board of the directors says, they usually ask the same questions. What do you see as the major risk factors?
Mm-hmm.
And it's been very helpful in pointing out risk factors to us here. And then they say, if you're going to mitigate your risk factors, what are the steps can you take to mitigate the risk factors in case everything doesn't go as you optimistically? So I really appreciate your input here, Bennett. I think this has been a very constructive call. And I guess I'm chairing the call. So unless somebody has something wonderful to say, Valerie wants to go off to her volunteer job at housing. And unless somebody has something more to say, Bennett, do you have any closing thoughts for us?
No. I think Steve, for his work, it's well done. And thank you, obviously, for helping to fund it. So you're planning for the future. So this is one of those processes to get us there.
Okay, so unless somebody else has something wonderful to say, let's.
Amen. How's that?
Thank you all. Thank you, Kim, especially. Thank you, Steve, and blessings on you all. And we look forward to what you're able to work out together. Bye.
All right.
Thank you.
You.
Bye-bye.
Bye.